Hafa and aloha, everyone. Our team is proud to present our change management proposal titled Ohana Overhaul for the organization Ohana Plus. Our team members are Faith Butterfield, Nicolette Choi, myself, Paul Long, and Jill Rohan. Ohana Plus was founded with a strong mission to provide inclusive and innovative preventative health services to underserved communities. While the organization offers a wide range of valuable and culturally responsive services, our analysis shows that with its current performance challenges, these are not due to lack of resources or expertise, rather internal misalignment. Our problem is that low psychological safety, inconsistent leadership practices, and lack of transparency have created a culture of mistrust. This has led to reduced employee engagement, limited communication, and ultimately a disconnect between the organization's mission and its day-to-day practices. When staff do not feel safe to speak or contribute ideas, the innovation slows, teamwork suffers, and the service delivery is impacted. In order to address this, our team proposes an overall aim of transformation. We aim to implement improvements and structural reorganization through cultural transformation, operational efficiency, and risk mitigation by aligning leadership practices with the organization's stated values of equity, transparency, and accountability. We believe that trust can be rebuilt, the communication can improve, and overall performance can become more streamlined and effective. Our team wants to ensure that this transformation is measurable and actionable through a SMART goal. So within 12 months, Ohana Plus will increase its employee-reported psychological safety scores by 25% and reduce staff turnover by 15%. And this will be achieved through the regular implementation of structured feedback systems, leadership training, and regular team debrief sessions. We feel that this approach is important because it focuses not just on outcomes, but on the conditions that make those outcomes possible. Ohana Overhaul is about more than fixing problems. It's about realigning the organization with its purpose. By rebuilding trust and empowering staff, Ohana Plus can move forward as a stronger, more effective, and truly mission-driven organization.
Thank you, Paul. So for our expected impact within the first year, we expect to transition to a data-driven and transparent framework for accountability reasons. To assist with this, we plan to use a third-party consultant to help establish a baseline for psychological safety and also risk mitigation. This will be accomplished through conducting surveys and listening sessions with 100% of leadership and 85% of staff completing what is being called our culture intensive. We'll also establish an equity and accountability committee, and they will help sort of formalize our legal and safety protocols to ensure that the organization is protected from legal and reputational liability through annual audits. There will also be interdisciplinary representation and transparency within these committees. We'll have available committee documents for any stakeholder or staff to review, and this will help build trust with those stakeholders. And lastly, this committee will also assist with protocols for performance reviews and also team development. We plan to have a 60% participation rate in these feedback loops through pre and post surveys, listening session attendance, and the use of anonymous reporting tools. And through this, employees will trust leadership's commitment to culture improvement. Okay, and for our long-term expected impact, after adopting these baseline scores for culture and risk, employee satisfaction is reflected in low turnover rates. The organization will be recognized externally for its psychological safety and work culture, resulting in a 40% reduction in turnover and recruitment costs. So we'll be saving a lot of money because we're not losing staff. 75% of senior leadership vacancies will be filled by internal applicants who are familiar with the frameworks established by the Equity and Accountability Committee. And we expect to see a 40% increase in community health service delivery attributed to cultural transformation due to the workforce retention and the establishment of long-term provider-client trust. The internal improvements made to psychological safety will have realigned the organization to the mission to provide health services to underserved populations.
Thank you, Taylor, for going over our expected impact. Um, my name is Faith. I'll be going over the stakeholders that we should be keeping in mind throughout this reorganizational process. Since the catalyst for our reorganization shed a little bit of a negative light on our organizational culture and reputation, we should really keep in mind that this is a sensitive experience. Any reorganization is a sensitive experience for people due to like they feel it's depending on sort of the level of employee or volunteer or recipient that they are, they might feel a lot of uncertainty and fear about the change. And so it's really important, considering that our culture is already front in the mind of so many people, that we're really intentional and have clear communication and clear planning to help maintain a certain level of actually to help heal this level of trust that we've already lost. So, first, I would like for us to consider our primary stakeholders, and these are generally people who receive our services. So, that is our behavioral and mental health services, primary and dental care, medication management services, acupuncture, substance abuse and gambling treatment, and as well as our more legal realm of assisting immigrants with the immigration process and the citizenship process, and the job support and counseling that they receive. These are stakeholders who have low influence but high interest, in that they don't have obviously much say in how we run our organization, but they are um, interested and dependent on the services that we provide. And so while we conduct our services throughout this reorganization, we should be especially considerate to the fact that our recipients are oftentimes already dealing with a level of uncertainty, and we don't want any internal uncertainty that we feel to translate into the services that we provide. We want to continue to be a strong pillar in the community that is only helping people and not contributing to any like fear and panic that they feel. So, the secondary stakeholders that we should keep in mind are people who are providing the services that we have. So, these are anywhere from just general support staff and volunteers all the way to the more specialized services that we provide, such as physician care, counseling, interpreting, social work, and lawyers and paralegals. These people are generally known as promoters. Hopefully, being employed by us, they believe in our mission and our cause. And so they also have a high interest in seeing our work continue. And they also have somewhat of a moderate influence on how our organization is run. Um, Definitely, in terms of our secondary stakeholders, it's important to, while we heal some of our internal trust and psychological safety, that we also ensure people that their jobs are not at stake and that we do our best to minimize the amount of confusion and uncertainty that they experience so that way it doesn't translate onto our primary stakeholders. So next we have our key stakeholders. These are people that there might be a little bit of crossover with the secondary stakeholders, in that both groups have high interest in the mission and cause of our organization. However, key stakeholders tend to have a higher level of influence, whether that be like structural, cultural, or financial. These are generally the people who are writing and planning our new strategic plans and policies, and should also be thought of as modeling the behaviors and the culture that we're working towards throughout this restructuring. So, this would be our executive team and governing body, and it may also be outside funders who influence what our the services that we provide through certain grants, or these could be politicians and community members who help share knowledge of our services to our outside recipients and also help spearhead the organizational goals.
Hi, everybody. This is Jill, and I'm going to be taking us through our quarterly targets and performance measures. So let's just ground ourselves in some of the guiding frameworks for this work is Cotter's 8-step of change model, which everybody's familiar with. I just want to call attention to these categories at the bottom as we'll kind of be referencing these throughout the presentation. So creating the right climate, engaging, enabling others, and implementing and sustaining our efforts. The other framework that we're working with is the diffusion of innovation, and we're really being intentional about this chasm and trying to build some momentum to kind of catapult us from the early adopters to the early majority. So you can see our content is laid out in a kind of a grid or a chart format. You can see the timeline on the left-hand side, our target and our measures at the top and key contributors. And then down at the bottom has the stage of our two frameworks that we're working with, Potter stage and diffusion of innovation. So this is going to be how this is laid out. There's a lot of content here, but really we're just trying to articulate that our efforts are intentional along with the stage of change that we're in and the concepts coming from the diffusion of innovation. So in the first 2 weeks, we want to hire a change manager and engage with a DEI team. We want to start listening, having an all-staff event, creating that urgency and starting that process of winning the hearts and minds of the staff. In our first quarter, we want to do lots of listening sessions weekly with the staff, a psychological survey. Here's where we are wanting to create the right climate change, but we want to hear from the hearts and minds of the staff first so we know what direction we're going. And this is where we're engaging some of that, the early adopters. In the second quarter, this is going to be a little bit of a quieter quarter, but we are anticipating that this is where we build momentum to kind of launch ourselves over that chasm. So here's where we take all of the data we learned from quarter one and put it into a strategic action plan, and then create a vision and a mission around this change that we're proposing. We anticipate in here, like I said, the chasm, but we are going to start engaging with some of our early adopters here. Then in quarter three, we have a big meeting with a lot of hype around it. And that's where we really say, like, okay, we heard you, here's the plan, and this is what we're doing going forward. And we're hoping that that will help launch us really to solidly be engaging with the early majority. And then finally in quarter four, we are wanting to engage that DEI team for the first year. So we want in quarter four for them to start to help the teams prepare for independence and to really continue this change that's been started. So this is where we're engaging the late majority. And then as we head into year two, we want the committee and the change manager to really lead the process there, and then recreate Cotter's stage all over again as they encounter new things and new culture in areas that they want to improve. So that is what it looks like for us for quarterly targets and measures. If you have any questions, please let us know.
So for this section, we focused on identifying the key assets and supports needed outside of stakeholders to move this innovation forward. One of the biggest needs that came up was the use of a neutral third-party consultant. Given the existing issues with trust and past conflict within the organization, having someone external matters. They can facilitate difficult conversations, support leadership development, and guide culture change in a way that feels more credible than if it were handled internally. Alongside that, bringing in external facilitators for training and professional development would help reinforce those efforts. Another area we focused on is data and evaluation systems. This includes survey platforms, ideally managed externally so staff feel safe being honest. In addition to that, having an anonymous reporting system in place allows staff to raise concerns in real time, not just during scheduled surveys. From there, data tracking tools and dashboards would help make progress visible and create more transparency. We also talked about organizational policy and accountability. There's a need to update HR policies and systems so expectations are clear and performance can be consistently tracked. This includes reinforcing non-retaliation policies, but also recognizing that policies alone are not enough, especially if there's already skepticism. Pairing them with external oversight helps build credibility. Training and capacity building also came up as a key support. Interdisciplinary team trainings can help address communication gaps, unclear roles, and low psychological safety. At the same time, leadership coaching and more structured evaluation tools for senior leadership would help create more accountability at the top. We also identified the need for a dedicated change or project manager. This role is important because someone needs to actually coordinate the work, track progress, and keep leadership accountable. Without that kind of structure, even strong plans can lose momentum pretty quickly. Finally, none of this works without funding. There needs to be dedicated resources to support consultants, training, evaluation systems, and the additional infrastructure we're proposing, ideally tied to evidence-based funding approaches so the work is sustainable. Overall, the main takeaway is that internal change is unlikely to happen without external support. Bringing together outside expertise, strong coordination through a change manager, better data systems, and real accountability structures makes this feel much more realistic and actionable.